Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey and I'm here with friends to talk about women's professional road cycling. I've got, of course, Lauren Rowney. Hello.
G'day everyone. Good to be here, coming to the very end of this season.
Yeah, it's true. We're almost done. We've got 4 race days left in 2024. Whew. And Gracie Elvin.
Hello, everybody. Always nice to be here.
Today we're going to talk about, the latest big transfer. I think it's time we maybe address the fact that we still don't know where Demi is going. Talk a little bit about the CMAC Ladies Tour. And not like a jam-packed episode today, but I'm sure that we'll go off on some tangents.
Don't forget the most important piece of the news too. End of the season means we're coming to the end of the draft season.
I've been trying to block it out.
Tills, I know you're listening, and I'm sure you checked the points this morning, friend. It's all going to come down to that final race in China.
Well, we'll see. We'll see who's even lining up in China, but we'll get to that later in the episode when we talk about CMAC, because rider numbers is definitely a conversation worth having after this week. But the biggest transfer over the last week, definitely, without question, Cecilie Uttrup Ludwig signs for Canyon SRAM for the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's a real big transfer, isn't it? I guess we kind of heard the rumors about it, but to see it confirmed, it's an interesting change, I guess, of teams, but probably a nice refresher for her to kind of have a change of scenery. I was thinking about it today, the FDJ teams really had such a great return on investment the last few years from where they've started way back with the Futuroscope outfit that it was a long time ago, and how they've built that team. And Cecilie was one of those riders that they picked up along the way to be one of their stars. And for sure, she hasn't had some seasons that went completely her way, but she still had some remarkable results and really bolstered that team alongside a couple of other riders to be where they are now. She won that amazing Tour de France stage the very first year that it was Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. And that was such a dramatic way to win too. So I think we'll always remember that one. And then just some really cool results too along the way. So I think that she'll be missed, but she's really has a lot to be thankful for from that team in how they've kind of built themselves as one of those teams that we get to talk a lot about, even though they might not have, or maybe they do now, but they haven't had the budget to rival some of the other big teams, but they've certainly had the results to rival it. So I think she'll be looking for a bit of a refresher mentally, physically, maybe with some new guidance or directing in that team. But I'm not sure quite how she's going to fit into that squad, but I'm sure that she can fit in anywhere with that personality.
Yeah, I find it such an interesting transfer because after it was announced, I was kind of crunching the numbers between her and Kasia and lining them up based on results. And Kasia has her tour victory, obviously, overall, which that coupled with a couple more World Tour wins than Cecilie puts her a little bit up on Cecilie in terms of what they've accomplished so far in their careers. But Kasia also has a couple years on Cecilie in terms of how long she's been in the sport, and she's been on bigger teams, which has obviously helped with her development. And Cecilie is still, in a way, still just tapping into what she's capable of, I feel like. And she's had some major setbacks, especially this year with her crash earlier in the year. And that really derailed her whole 2024 campaign, coming off of a really, really solid 2 years, with the tour, the stage win at the tour, all of her success at Tour Scandinavia, 3rd at the Worlds in Glasgow last year. And so she's really an impressive rider, but they're very, very similar in skill set. I think maybe Cecilie is a little bit punchier and Kasia is a little bit of a better climber, but it's really interesting to think how those two are going to work with each other next year, because they're two huge personalities, arguably two of the most liked riders in the peloton from a fan perspective. and two of the most exciting riders in the peloton. Those two are always, animating races. And so I think it could either go really, really well. Like they could either feed off of each other's, love of racing and how they race, how aggressively they race, and with the passion that they both have, or they could butt heads and things could go totally south. And that's something that we're going to find out next year when we see the racing. But I also think that both of them have matured so much as riders in the last couple of years that what we're really going to see is like Kasia actually having a teammate who can match her in the finale of like one day races, which is really where she's lacking. And we always say, like, if you look at like Flanders, for example, this year, she was up against two Little Trek riders. And a lot of the time it's like her solo with like multiple teammates from Little Trek or multiple teammates from SD Works. And she doesn't really have any cards to play because she doesn't have a good enough kick. And so she can't get away from them. She's not going to outsprint them. And she's racked up a ton of impressive, podiums and top tens in that way. But she's always kind of been lacking one person to kind of be there to be her, I don't know, the Shirin Van Androoy to her Elisa Longo Borghini in the classics this year, for example. And I think Sile could be that person for her. So it could mean a really exciting duo for Canyon SRAM going into the one day races.
Yeah, I think you've both covered it perfectly. And I will just say this, knowing the management of that team, they're usually pretty careful with how they hire riders. And I'm sure they would have had lengthy conversations because everyone knows Sile. Obviously, as a public, we know what she's like, but behind the scenes, DSs do talk, teams talk. So I'm sure that they would have come to some sort of agreement that, like we've discussed, when teams meet in December or even before you're signing contracts, you have the discussion of what are your goals, what are your focus for the coming seasons, and how do they align? I think they'll obviously go for Kasia again, the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift, and some of the classics that Kasia will potentially want to target, then Sile will look at other ones. And they obviously share leadership, but always with the opportunity that for some reason, if one doesn't have the legs and the other has the opportunity to then get more support from the other. So it's just going to have to be very clear. And I think they have some great DSs on board now, and a good team around them that they can make it work.
Yeah, and I think that they could easily have like Kasia target the longer stage races because she's clearly very good at that. I mean, twice third at the Tour de France before winning it, and she's finished second at the Giro before as well in 2020. So she's good at those 10-day-ish races. And Sile is really good at the shorter stage races. I mean, she's finished, on the podium of Tour of Scandinavia. She's won that race as well. And the shorter races in Spain, she's done well at like Volta a Burgos and stuff like that. So I think they could easily dole out leadership between those races. And we also saw Kasia take a huge step back from racing this year. She didn't have nearly the same amount of race days as she has had in the past in the preparation for the tour. So they also have someone who can fit into the team when Kasia is, doing her big training blocks and she's not interested in racing, because that worked so well for her this year. I guarantee we'll see it again from her.
And let's not forget how Dygert will factor into things moving forwards. Non-Olympic year, more focus on the road. I think they have big plans for her, and she's going to be such an engine in the classic races.
Yeah, they just have to pre-open the doors for her,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've kind of talked about it in other episodes too. It's like you see it less now in big personalities or, big abilities coming to teams, whether they can handle that. And we've seen time and time again, and SD Works and Trek are the really good examples of big stars coming together, but being really professional about it because they're just getting paid so well now. The race calendar's fuller, there's more choices, there's more flexibility. I think that a lot of riders can come into an environment and they don't necessarily have to be besties, but they can still race really well together because that's their job and they treat it as a really serious job now. But, everyone still has an ego, so it'll still be interesting to see where they may or may not be butting heads. But I don't know. I think that we've been given a few good examples over the last handful of years of we've been skeptical about how some riders might work together, and they've seemed to work it out pretty well.
I also think that like this is in even apart from kind of matching her up with the other leaders on Canyon SRAM or leader, it's interesting to think about that they haven't ever it's been a while since Canyon SRAM picked up a big name. Like they've really leaned on Kasia as their leader for since she joined the team, and in the years since they signed her, they've signed younger riders, they've signed newer talents. Like when they signed Shabby, she was basically no one coming from Bigla, didn't really have any results, and they built her up as a rider. And this is kind of their first big name signing since signing Kasia, if you kind of don't count Chloe Dygert, which I don't know if you should, because she was only a big name because she won the world's time trial, but she hadn't raced on the road at all. So it was still a big question mark, her signing for the team for her 4-year deal when she signed in 2021 for the 2021 season. But yeah, this is like a big change for Canyon SRAM in the riders that they want to bring onto the team.
Yeah, that's a good one, Abby. And I was just thinking that used to be the team, the stacked team back when Lauren Rowney was on that squad with the Lululemon days. That was the dream team, wasn't it?
It really was. It was the team that I watched all their like YouTube videos and and I had like I got the team kit from Ally Stalker and I just the team to be on. No, it'll be cool to see how she slots into the team. And she's not the only known name going over to that team. There will be more announcements coming, and I think we're going to be looking at a really, really strong team in a couple weeks. Like we've been talking so much about FDJ Suez and how much of a powerhouse team they're building over there, but they're not going to be the only team that comes out of the transfer season looking like a force. Speaking of FDJ Suez, it is October 15th now, and we still don't know who Demi Vollering is riding for. And we have our suspicions and our theories, and there's rumblings around the internet, but and I've held back from talking about it because I don't think it's that weird that we don't know. I think this year has been crazy in terms of transfers. And in the last 2 years, we've found out teams have made announcements earlier and earlier in the fall, but to not know where a rider was going mid-October wouldn't have been that weird of a thing 3 years ago on the women's side. That would have just been a normal occurrence. But I think because she's one of the best riders in the world and just the kind of person that she is, the rider that she is, the speculation about where she's going and also why it's taking so long to announce is maybe worth just mentioning. And we know more than we can say on the podcast, but it is getting a little bit frustrating not knowing.
It is getting frustrating. It is weird. Especially because we've known for so long, since early spring, that she was going to be going somewhere else. And Kim has told me a couple of days ago, she said, I kind of don't care anymore. I'm done. I'm not watching cycling anymore. I don't. And it was just funny to hear that perspective of, one of the super fans of cycling, to just be like, I don't care anymore. I'm not it's my interest is gone. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of people might feel like that. And it's almost like they're trying to build the suspense and tension and excitement and all this stuff. And they've probably just gone a bit too far. I'm sure that there's a reason why it's taken so long, but I think everyone's just a bit over it now.
It's like when you have to wait too long in between TV seasons and you kind of like forget that that TV series even existed. Like, I don't remember what happened on the last season of Stranger Things, and
I was
I've
just going to bring
completely
that up.
tuned out. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Are they still like, obviously her partner is her manager. So I think that's a key piece of the puzzle there. And I won't say too much about opinions about that. But contract wise, like, are they still figuring out the details? Like we all suspected, yeah, firstly, it was going to come after the Tour de France Femmerbeck Zwift because what a great announcement to have if she had won. And then it was like, okay, priming for the Worlds. Maybe after the World Championships, if she had won, again, a fantastic announcement. Here we have the world champion. And then that didn't happen. And so, yeah, with your, yeah, I don't know. I've kind of lost interest and I see there's less of it as well on, for example, the Skate Discord. And I do wonder, like I've mentioned it several times now, and it was a comment that Til's made that maybe it's got something to do with the brands and they're waiting till December, which seems super late for one of the hot shots of women's cycling. But I think there's something maybe to do with the contract or the negotiations aren't sorted, or maybe the team's having doubts. I don't know.
We know that like Specialized is part of the deal with Demi, and it's not the first time the Specialized have kind of tied themselves to a rider, like with Sagan, for example. So we know that that is part of the situation, that where Demi goes, Specialized will either go with her or is already present there. But yeah, it is really, really interesting. And, you know, you'd think that the team that she's signing for would be excited enough about the announcement that they would be pushing to announce it as early as they can. And obviously, like in cycling, we have team camps that happen in December. And if we have to wait until the team in question has a training camp in December and they announce her at the training camp, that's just like, that's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah, she's just going to suddenly like appear in some Instagram story in new kit. Yeah, I don't know. It's a strange one, and there's obviously a lot more to this story, I think. And what, to Gracie's point and Kimber's point, like the building of the anticipation, I don't think it's that anymore. There's definitely something we don't know, and we honestly don't know.
Yeah, there's more to this that we will one day read in the Demi Vollering memoir written by Matt Denif.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And I also think the perception of Demi has shifted pre and post Tour de France Femme. I would say there are less fans now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the stuff that's
post
happened,
Worlds as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely been a bit of a shift, I think. I think much like, you know, Blake Lively, you can look into things that have happened in races prior to the Olympics or the Worlds and the Tour, and maybe pick apart some decisions made. But yeah, the whole thing is just bizarre. It's a lot of drama, it seems like.
Yeah, and she also must be under so much pressure. I do feel for her because it's almost like we expect her to win all of these big races, and the Tour de France Femme this year and the Worlds to a lesser extent are good examples of that, in that she was a hot favorite, and she would have had a lot of pressure on herself. But I think she might, even to Lauren's point, if they were building an announcement around those races, imagine that extra pressure if that was the case. So I can't imagine how it would feel to be her, to have such big contracts now with Nike and Specialized and whatever team is coming, just to feel that she has to be perfect all the time and win all of these races. Because even if you are as talented as she is, you still have to have a lot of luck and things to go well. And cycling is just such a difficult sport to win any races, let alone all of the races that someone like her can win. It's tough to to face that every day and to face that criticism as well. So in that way, I feel for her.
Yeah, also like I think we overlook how new she is to the sport. Like she really only started getting results 2020 and kind of came onto the scene 2021. And she's only really become the rider that we know in the last 2 seasons. So it's a lot of pressure for someone who doesn't have, the base that Marianne Vos, for example, has. Like a rider with an immense amount of pressure who has enough experience and has enough of enough years in the sport and mileage in the legs to be able to brush off that pressure, not really have it affect her. Demi is not that rider. She's brand new to the sport to have so much pressure. We will continue to wait, and we'll probably know at some point where she's riding. We'll know at least by Omloop Het Nieuwsblad where she's riding. And obviously bring you guys news. Maybe they're waiting for like the Tour de France Femme route announcement, which is I think October 29th. When they at least announce the cities involved in the 2025 Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. Maybe it'll come around there. Who knows? Looking forward to the Tour de... Yeah, never mind. Okay, moving on. Grace Brown lined up for her final race and her only race in the Rainbow World Championship skin suit at Chrono de Nation this weekend. It's like a pretty iconic one-day time trial, and a lot of the big time trialists have done it over the years, and she won. So her first race in the Rainbow Bands, her last race in the Rainbow Bands, and another victory for her to close out her career.
Yeah, we've said it enough already. Bit of a fairy tale, a lot of a fairy tale actually, but it's a nice way to finish off. It's not exactly a stacked start list, or maybe it used to be prestigious. I don't think it's really a prestigious race as such anymore, but certainly a lot of names for time trialing show up, and yeah, you still have to ride hard. You can't go easy. It's not a walk in the park. And I saw a couple of videos of her and photos, and she definitely had that pain face on. So, but it would have been really nice, and like without pressure, maybe a tiny bit of pressure. Of course, you want to win in those rainbow bands on that beautiful gold bike, but I'm sure she really enjoyed the suffering, and just really had a fun day. And it's very cool. So just another cool Grace Brown thing.
I liked the photos of her with Vittoria Guazzini, who got second, trade teammates on FDJ, obviously. And Vittoria was like so happy for her at the finish line. It was just really cute to see the two of them together on the podium. And yeah, like her being able to celebrate. Obviously, she got to celebrate with the Australian team in Zurich. But being able to celebrate with FDJ Suez as well, they've been such a huge part of her career, and especially the last couple of years. And so it would have been cool for her to kind of close out her career with them, instead of only the national team.
No, it was a really special moment. And I'm so glad for her that she got that one opportunity to wear the rainbow stripes. She looks so just incredible. And what a way to cap off your career, winning your final race with your whole team around you. I know that that team has a really special connection, and she's really enjoyed her time there. I'm sure she enjoyed her time when she was with Orica back in the days. But I think, Grace, you can probably speak to this, but Grace really grew, I suppose, with her time with FDJ Suez.
Yeah, I think that was a great way for her to enter the pro peloton with Green Edge for those couple of years. But I think it was such a great move for her to go across to the French team, and just enjoy a different culture, enjoy learning from new people, but also just feel that nice responsibility. And I think that was always going to be hard to get in Green Edge with some of the other stronger riders on the team at the time. So I think she really found a great home there for her in FDJ, and built nice trust around her as well with the other riders and the staff. And every opportunity that was given to her, she really made the most of it.
Over in the Netherlands, we had the CMAC Ladies Tour, the penultimate stage race for the women, the last World Tour race in Europe, and the race overall won by Lotte Kopecky after a pretty dominant week by SD Worx. They won 5 of the 6 stages. Most of them were sprint finishes, with three wins for Lorena Wiebes. One, which great for you, Gracie. Weren't you just saying that she let you down a little bit this year?
Yeah, I was really holding out for this tour. Am I still last? I haven't checked.
Barbara Garishi took one of the SC Worx Pro Time wins from breakaway, and Lotte Kopecky won the final stage and took the 10 bonus seconds to win the overall for the second year in a row. She only won it by 2 seconds in the end. Francesca Koch was holding the lead in that breakaway with Barbara Garishi and was able to still hold on for second. And probably the ride of the week from Canyon SRAM Zoe Bäckstedt to finish third overall after wearing the leader's jersey for stages 2 and 3. She won the opening time trial and then started the second stage with only one teammate who did not finish the stage, was forced to abandon. So she rode stage 3 completely solo with no teammates and was able to still hold on to the lead after stage 3 and was finally taken from her on stage 4. But what a week from Bäckstedt. Holy crap. To be able to hold on to third overall. I think she got a little bit lucky in that the race was poorly attended. By the final stage, there was only 58 starters on the line. There was a bunch of illness that ran through the peloton, a pretty nasty crash on stage 5, which also took down Kopecky and made her win on stage 6 all the more impressive. And but yeah, the situation with Bäckstedt, I think, was one of the major talking points of the week. That was the door comment that I made earlier was alluding to the fact that Chloe Dygert walked into a door or had some kind of interaction with a door before the time trial and fractured her nose and was able to race the time trial. The team is in theory required to start 5. So she raced the time trial and then didn't start the next day, along with multiple Canyon SRAM riders got sick, including Alice Morris, who didn't finish the second stage, but kind of an insane story for Bäckstedt. Just heard her dad.
Yeah. It was a really strange story, and a part of me was like, sometimes with these last races, how I had this once in my career where the team was like, you just need to come to start and then you can go home. And then I was wondering that, but why would you still field? How many riders do they have to begin with? 5 or 6? Only 5.
With the maximum is 7.
Yeah, I mean, starting with such low numbers and then for 4 of them to go home and have one left with a potential race winner was really sad. I don't know if disappointing is the word. So kudos to Zoe for being able to hold her own in the bunch and making sure she was in all those decisive moves to ensure that she didn't lose a hell of a lot of time, particularly the day where, the bunch did split up. So fantastic riding by her. And after such a hard season, it was really nice to see her get that win and stand on the podium. But I guess the deeper talking point has got to be with, I think we've spoken about the calendar and the size of teams and what we're seeing towards the end of the season. And I know it's really hard as a rider to show up sometimes to these races, but with the size of the teams that we're seeing now, and when it's a World Tour race, you do expect that all teams field a team at such a race. And I mean, this was always one of the bigger tours and really a great opportunity for sprinters. So like, for example, I know Consoni was meant to line up but got sick. And then I was wondering as well, some of these riders who cross over on the track with the track, is it the World Champs coming up? Maybe the decisions to keep some of those riders not at the race also had a bit of an impact of the style of rider that we saw.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, I think, one of the major talking points coming out of the race is they the race started with, in theory, below the minimum required for a World Tour event. The minimum is 90 riders, and they had, obviously there are circumstances beyond control, and when it comes to riders' health, it's better that they don't start. But for a World Tour race to only be down to like 58 riders on the fifth stage is pretty wild. And I think, like, looking at the maximum number of team sizes, so for World Tour teams, the maximum number is 20, with the option of having 2 Neo-Pros. And for pro teams starting next year, it's 18 with the same, Neo-Pro. You can have up to 2 Neo-Pros as well. So in theory, like, team sizes max out at 22 for World Tour teams. And that's just not enough riders anymore for the calendar that we have and the requirements put on teams. And there are rumors going around that next year there will be requirements for World Tour teams to attend World Tour races. And like CMAC Ladies Tour is at least in Europe, but we're looking at, the 2 World Tour races that close out the calendar in China starting today as you're listening to this. And there's only 2 teams currently signed up for Chongming Island, which starts today, and they're not World Tour teams. And team races themselves have to go through a lot to be on the World Tour calendar. So for then teams not even to show up is kind of a slap in the face for those races. And it's a bummer for the racing as well. Like, I think SC Works got incredibly lucky that Kopecky could have won the overall with bonus seconds. If you look at like the stage that Barbara Garishi won, that stage could have ended the race for them. Like, they got lucky because Garishi won the stage and they were able to keep it close enough that it was within bonus second reach for Kopecky. But they got super lucky that there was not many riders in the race, that the conditions kind of tilted in their favor, that they were able to take the overall win. They could have lost it on that day if DSM had full numbers and, Charlotte Cool hadn't gone down in that crash on stage 5. Like, this could have been Francesca Koch's biggest career win to date, winning the CMAC Ladies Tour. And it's just kind of, it's an interesting situation. And whether or not women's World Tour teams should be required to race all the World Tour races, like for the men, I think there's some stipulations in there where they're maybe allowed to miss a certain number. But I do think at a certain point, when the World Tour teams' budgets are increasing and there's so much going into the salaries of the riders, as it should be, that they should also, be able to field teams for all the World Tour races and be able to go to all the World Tour races, because that's the game. We want the most exciting races. We want all the teams at these races. And we've had like multiple situations this year where like Visma Lease Bike didn't line up to a handful of the classics, and I think it's definitely a conversation worth.
And I mean, this tour traditionally is definitely one for the flatland riders, but there's usually that one really hard stage around Valkenburg that we didn't see this year, which usually can change the dynamics of the race. So you'll have a Lorena Wiebes that can climb really well and still win the overall tour, or of course a Kopecky. But I felt like that was lacking this year, and I do wonder when they planned the tour if there were issues around road closures in Valkenburg for this time of year, for example. Because I know they have had that before with the Amstel Gold Race, or whether they were just looking for a pure sprinters battle royale between Wiebes and Cool, which unfortunately we didn't seem to have this tour.
It's becoming increasingly harder to close races in the Netherlands for like tours like this, which is why like a lot of the same towns host the racing time and time again. And so that's kind of part of why it's maybe this year's CMAC Ladies Tour wasn't as exciting as, last year, for example. But yeah, I think having a full peloton is probably the starting point.
Yeah, I just wanted to just say the last points on this race. What I do like about these later season races is something I've said before. It's an opportunity or like redemption for some riders who perhaps have had like a bad season, or maybe they got injured, or there's been illness or something like that, or teams who haven't quite performed how they were hoping, for them to kind of rectify their season in a way. And like I mentioned, this used to be one of those premier tours for the women's calendar. And so for me, it was good to see Liverpool Jaco racing so aggressively. Back to your point, Abby, yes, it was a smaller field and we didn't have all the big players, but good to see them taking those opportunities. And then again, a rider like Backstead to finish the season on such a good note before she probably heads over to the cross. And who was the standout riders? It was, for me, to see young Silke Snolders up there. I was really hoping on that last stage she would clinch the win. So those were just a few little favorite moments.
Man, she was so close on the final stage to pulling that off. That was super impressive. The final stage was a bit more technical than the rest. So getting off the front for her and getting as much time as she did, I think she was well within reach of taking that final stage if SC Works hadn't really wanted the overall for Kopecky. And the way that the overall played out was also quite interesting, that Wiebes kind of threw on the brakes before the line so Kopecky could take that final stage, for example. And yeah, I mean, for Zoe Backstead, it's her last race with her dad as her DS, like we know Magnus is leaving Canyon SRAM, and so it was their last opportunity to kind of be the father-daughter duo, and they really got to do that without any other riders in the race. And it was also a send-off for a lot of riders over the years that we've completely fallen in love with, like Christine Mayrus. It was her last race. I've made no secret that she's one of my favorite riders. She's super cool on and off the bike and will be very, very missed next year from SC Works Pro Time. And Human Powered Health also said goodbye to two of their riders. Audrey Cordon-Margot, another absolute legend in the sport. Like, she's been racing for 15 years now, and she's like the French rider in the peloton. So she's stepping away. And Alice Wood, formerly Alice Barnes as well, had her last race. So it's like last year we said goodbye to Annemiek van Vleuten at CMAC Ladies Tour. This year we had three riders to kind of send off onto the boat to the undying lands.
And it was a really special send-off with all the riders, like making, what is it called, like a tunnel with their bikes to walk through. I thought that was such a nice gesture. And yes, Christine Mayrus will be really missed, I think, in that team and in the peloton. She's been a key player her whole career, actually. So excited to see where we see her next.
That was a nice piece that you wrote about her in the newsletter, Abby. And yeah, someone that a lot of riders coming up can really look to as such a good role model, in that you can carve out your own niche now in women's cycling. You don't just have to be winning big races to be a valuable rider. But also for Audrey Cordon-Margot, she's had a slightly different career, but also someone that we would maybe consider as a bit of a bunch captain as well. So nice that she got to be part of that send-off, because I think she'll also be missed as someone that's not afraid to say what she thinks sometimes, but also probably a great mentor and road captain within her own teams.
Yeah, she's formerly or fondly known as the general in the peloton, and she's one of those older riders, not like older age-wise, but like older experience-wise, who really keeps the young ones in check. We're going to be just relying on Ellen Van Dijk to keep the whippersnappers respectful in the peloton these days. But yeah, but it's not done. We still have 4 race days left in China, 3 stages of the tour, Chongming Island, and then Guangxi is the final race day. And they're very sprinter friendly races. So I'll write more in the newsletter as far as a preview. Right now, very little known about the start lists, which obviously will impact the race greatly. And having it one day after, or like one day in between CMAC Ladies Tour and flying to China doesn't bode well for a lot of the sprinters. I don't think we'll see Wiebes or Elisa Balsamo lining up, which actually we didn't talk about Balsamo and how she finished second three times to Wiebes this week, which is decent, a decent, but I think that she will really be wanting to figure out how to find that little tiny bit more to be able to challenge her in the sprints, which I think we'll see next year. But yeah, still got China coming up, and we will talk about it next week, but check out the newsletter for more information. I have opened the draft, Lauren, and you are leading.
It's all on China now, isn't it? It depends who shows up. And I think one of my sprinters will be there from Pure Powered Health.
Oh dear.
Daria Pikalik.
Daria Pikalik, she won there last year.
Yep.
This is a horrible turn of events for me. Matt has passed me by like a lot. So it's me and Gracie holding down the tail end of this thing.
Yeah, we are experts, we swear. I looked at my list the other day and I'm still like quite happy with my choices. They just didn't quite have the year that I was expecting, but that's okay. There's maybe one or two riders that I'd swap out that I probably should have, but like overall, I think we all had good lists.
I think we had good lists, but like in terms of, I keep going back to Till, she really had like a standout list.
Yeah, sometimes you really, sometimes the season just doesn't go your way, and we'll try again next year.
Yeah, we will try again.
All right. Well, that's about it from us this week. We can wrap it up with obsessions if you guys got anything good.
I'm still watching plenty of TV and currently watching Shogun, which I think won a whole bunch of Emmys recently, but it's really good. It's based off a book by James Clavell and it's set in Japan, and I can't really explain it, but it's worth watching if you're into Japanese culture and war and stuff like that. I'm not generally into war stuff, but this specific type of show has been really interesting, and it's all subtitled, so you have to concentrate. You can't like just be on your phone or whatever. So I kind of like shows like that.
Yeah, that's good. I've heard good reviews about that one. Should add it into the mix. I'll stick with the TV shows. Although, yeah, I'll stick with the TV shows. We've been watching Abbott Elementary, and I love it so much. It's a great, like, office, kind of the Office style with, like, the perspective of the show. But teachers in elementary school in Philadelphia, and it's phenomenal. The writing is amazing, and the jokes are amazing, and all of the actors in the show are really, really good. So highly recommend. Lauren might not be able to give us an obsession. Her microphone has been hijacked.
I'm obsessed with not having a baby on my lap. He is a wiggle worm because he just learned to crawl, so that means there's just chaos. No, my obsession for the week is the book I'm reading. It's a bit of an older one from Jodi Picoult. Is that how you say last name? And it's about actually a high school shooting, which is awful, but it's just, her books are really easy to read and addictive. And Abby, I will text you the name so you can put it in the show notes. But I'm just loving my nighttime reading, because that's the time of the day where I actually have time to read, and it's just such a joy. So that's my favorite part sometimes of the evening, is just to go up to bed early and read my book.
Well, we'll be back next week to talk about kind of a season wrap up and the end of 2024. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks you two for joining me.